Hey guys, Wolfie here and welcome back to the channel. As always, the usual disclaimer, any opinion here is mine and mine alone. Now this is going to be part 2 of the new build for 2023. This is going to a buddy of mine, absolutely free of charge. A lot of the stuff I've been, waiting, had to change this, had to change that. That's pretty much been why I had, wait as long as I did to get everything together. It's been, I want to say it's more than a year. Give or take. So I am waiting for a couple of components at the time of the filming, and one of them is the AIO Cooler, which is going to be NZXT Kraken X53 RGB in black. Now it's going with the theme of the chassis, which is the NZXT H5 Elite in black, and that's that on that. Another thing I'm waiting on, and that's because of this slot right over here where I'm pointing at, that is going to be a sound card. It's going to be the same exact sound card that's in Odin. I will have in the description below the exact type. I am waiting on that sound card, but fortunately it won't affect this portion of the build itself. And like I said, I'm going to have the complete list of components for the build in the description below. It's going to a buddy of mine. She knows who she is, and hopefully I get this done close to the time of her potentially moving out of state. So that is that on that. And from part 1, I did some stuff here with the chassis. And to be more exact, this is the chassis right here. This is the NZXT H5 Elite, and that's in black. And what I did here is that I went ahead and, rearranged some fans and sets where they're being positioned, as well as did a very small amount of cable management, so that way I'm not as worried about things like, okay, this goes where, if that makes any sense. So what I'm going to be doing here in part 2, let me grab this really quickly. So I'm going to start with the platform installation, but I'm not going to be fully done with it. And that is because I am waiting for the AIO Cooler to show up. And that's that on that. So it's not going to be, I'm going to try to make this not as long of a video, but you'd be surprised knowing me. And what I also did here between part 1 and this, I tested out the random sense of is it going to be easier for me to insert it? Is it going to be difficult? That sort of thing. So that way I could do part 2 here in absolute confidence. To reiterate the CPU, which is going to be the first thing I'm going to be doing. It is the AMD Ryzen 9 5900X. And again, to reiterate, very reasoning for the parts is because I had a bunch of these parts in advance of the 7000 series chips, as well as the 600 series AMD motherboard. So I'd rather go with something that's more reliable, that's been around a longer time, as opposed to the newest stuff out there, which, if memory serves me correctly, there are still issues with some of the newer components. So that way, I'd rather wait until a lot of the issues resolve themselves, and that way I could just at that point will be when I pull the trigger on the newer stuff. But in any case, when it comes to the CPU, it's always, make sure you know where the arrow is. And right there. As so, I do want to mention here, before I go any further, there is a backup motherboard in case this one right here goes bad. It is a used motherboard. It's Odin's original motherboard. And if for some reason this motherboard goes bad unexpectedly, I do have a B550 motherboard, which also has Wi-Fi in it. And what's even better about the B550, I did a BIOS update on it, so that way it can work with the 5900 CPU without a problem. So I'm just going to test it right here. I'm going to test the ends, make sure everything's peachy. Now, I won't be doing any thermal paste application just for the sole reason that I don't have my cooler yet. And I should be getting the cooler at the end of this week. So what I'm going to be doing next is I'm going to be going after memory installation. And there is 2 packs of these. So it's 64 gigabytes of RAM altogether. And it's 4 times 16. So what this is right here, it is the G-Skilled Trident Z RGB. This is a 3200 megahertz kit. 16 gigabyte sticks each. So that's 32. This is a 32 gig kit. But again, I bought 2 of these, so it's 64. And I want to make sure I install the memory here with absolute confidence. And anybody is wondering about a certain cat, aka Sandy.the.tabby, I believe he's eating his wet food in peace as the type of recording. Now, because it's 4 times 16, I will be occupying all 4 spots. There we go. That's 1 out of 4. And for the record, regarding the motherboard here, I did another BIOS update on it, so that way everything is all smooth in sense of like when it comes to like BIOS, when it posts all that stuff. But like I said, I do have a backup motherboard. This motherboard goes out completely. Now, regarding this part right here where my fingers are pointing at, this part of the motherboard, it is off on purpose, and that's because once I get this motherboard onto the chassis itself, that way I can put the piece that's supposed to be here back in place. which makes the overall process of building a computer a lot safer and smoother for me, as well as for anybody that wants to build. Now, for those who want to who go buy pre-builds, I do not blame you one bit. You have my utmost respect, because it's like, you know your situation better than I, and as the saying goes, who am I to judge? But I will say here that the option to build a computer yourself is always available. It's just a matter of you knowing your own situation the best. So there we have it. That is 6 out of 4. And like I said, I do like to clean things up as I go along, so that way I don't have to fret over a sense of like space, if that makes any sense. But I'm going to be ending this particular part 2 here with installation of these. Now, with the B550 motherboards, I do have to warn everybody, is that the bottom slot, and we're just going to pretend that this is the B550 motherboard instead of the X570. Now, the B550 slot, the B550 motherboard, I should say, the bottom NVMe slot on the B550 motherboard is a Gen 3, which is why I went with this for just storage drive, as opposed to having 2 of these around. So that way, I'm planning smart. I don't have to worry about like speed issues, all that sort of stuff. So I'm going to get a pair of scissors so I can open these up in safety. And then when it comes to opening stuff like this up, you want to do like the opening like with the blade or whatever. You want to do it away from you instead of towards you. And then when it comes down to your boot drive, it's always going to be something. It should be a Gen 4 depending on your motherboard. But the thing is with your boot drive, it should be the one where it has your highest read and write speeds. Now, when it comes to like screwdrivers, people, say, hey, don't use electric. But if you have something like this around, it is a wow stick. This is going to be very extremely helpful in the sense of like save time, or if you have arthritis. And I say that because when it comes to like things like health issues where it's like you need to like have an electric screwdriver around, you're supposed to have one to do stuff by hand. A wow stick like this, it comes in handy so well. And believe it or not, you can find these on Amazon. Now with this particular motherboard, I actually what I did here like off screen and in advance is that I replaced the thermal pad, as you can see here. So that way, once the newer drives show up, I don't have to worry about like things getting too hot too soon. And speaking of Sandy, I think he is making his presence known. Hi, Sandy. Hi, buddy. You're my buddy. Yes, I'd like to talk to Sandy. Sue me. And yes, Sandy is saying hi to everybody right now. It's okay, buddy. It's okay. It's okay, Sandy. I know you're being thankful for the wet food. And yes, it actually happened. I actually fed Sandy some wet food. And that's the whole thing is a completely separate video. So that is the extra storage drive in. And now we're going to go into the boot drive. Now you notice here that I'm doing my best to keep the fingers away from the fingers. There we go. There we go. Got a 2 for 2. Now, fortunately, I know which one goes where. So that's one. And see if I could get this right on the first try. So there we have it. So we have here a semi-complete platform done. Semi-complete because, like I said, I'm going to point this out really quickly. Is that right here? I am waiting for the AIO cooler to show up so that way I can get rid of these, then do what I need to do regarding the cooler itself. And before... Okay, looks like I can actually end this video on here. So I think as of right now, I just have to wait, and hopefully, you know, the cooler comes without issues. So that is that on that. With Wolvie here signing off. I will catch you all on the flip side.